Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first ever Sustainability, Housing, Efficiency, and Neighborhood Subcommittee meeting. So you're witnessing a little bit of Phoenix history today with the first ever meeting of our new subcommittee, and also the first meeting of subcommittee meeting for Deborah Stark on this side of the table. So congratulations to Councilwoman Stark. Looking forward to working with Councilman Waring, and Councilman Valenzuela will be joining us later today as our final member of the new subcommittee. So this subcommittee combines many of the elements of the Neighborhood Housing and Development Committee, as well as the Finance, Efficiency, and Economy and Sustainability Subcommittee. So we will be doing the minutes of both of those meetings for approval from past council meetings. We do not have anyone here for the call to the public, so we will begin with the minutes of those two meetings.
There we go. So I move to recommend approval of both minutes, both sets, or do we need to do individual? Okay, so I recommend approval of items 1 and 2, the minutes.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. We have 2 items on the consent agenda, but we have many people here who have been working very hard on the commemoration of Indigenous Peoples Day, which is item number 3. So we are going to take that off consent, but would entertain a motion on the second consent agenda item, which is the authorization to apply for Ross education grants, which will help residents of our housing get education and access to college.
So move.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. And now we will go to Commemoration of Indigenous Peoples Day, which is an agenda item that comes to us thanks to interest from the community and with support of our Historic Preservation, or our city's Heritage Commission. So we'll turn it over to our planning director to introduce the items and the citizens who are showing the leadership in this area.
Vice Mayor Gallego, council members, thank you. We're here this morning with staff does not have a presentation, but I will briefly introduce it, and we have the proponents of this measure here to provide some background on it. This is a official recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day by the city of Phoenix. This type of process goes through the Heritage Commission, which is also the Historic Preservation Commission, which is why it falls within the Planning and Development Department. So with me here today, I have Michelle Dodds, our Historic Preservation Officer, and Lorraine Montero, who is the city archaeologist. And we are here to happily to address any questions or answer anything that may come up regarding this item. It was approved by the Heritage Commission unanimously. To recommend that the council designate this day also Indigenous Peoples Day. It would take place the same day as Columbus Day. It does not replace Columbus Day, so it's in addition to coming up here very shortly. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. We are one of the cities with one of the largest Native American populations, and also our entire city would not be here without our heritage and the role of Indigenous people, including with our water system. So it's exciting that we have the interest in this, but really this is driven by our citizens. So I will turn it over to Jeff and Carlos to tell us a little bit about how we got here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. The purpose of Indigenous Peoples Day is to recognize the significant history and cultural presence of the local Indigenous communities. Arizona is home to 22 Native American tribes, all located throughout important areas of the state, with many having state historical landmarks, monuments, and natural preserves. The passage of Indigenous Peoples Day in Phoenix will make Phoenix the largest city in the country to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day, which is a significant statement for a city that is a central hub in the southwestern United States.
Another purpose of this resolution is to raise awareness of local Indigenous communities and to have a day in which Indigenous communities can celebrate and commemorate the heritage and legacy of local Indigenous communities. In fact, Phoenix is home to 44,000 Native American citizens, and that makes Phoenix the third largest city with that population in the country, with the third largest Native American population. We have 25 cities across the country that have passed Indigenous Peoples Day by city resolutions. This includes large cities such as Denver, Minneapolis, Portland, San Antonio, and Seattle. We hope with the support of Phoenix, this would encourage other large cities to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day.
That's right. We think with the third largest Indigenous community in the country, we would love to see Phoenix be on the forefront of including this day. And we don't see a reason why that shouldn't be the case. And I'd just like to read a couple of my favorite excerpts here from the resolution. The city recognizes the fact that Phoenix is built upon the homelands and villages of the indigenous peoples of this region. The city values the many contributions made to our community through indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, art, and the deep cultural contribution that has substantially shaped the character of the city of Phoenix. And those are probably my two favorite excerpts from the resolution, because I think they really just point to the beauty of this resolution and the fact that it's just common sense to acknowledge our history in this way.
So we wanted to just kind of summarize why we're here today, but we wanted to say that the City's Heritage Commission has fully supported this resolution to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. We have been in contact with local Native American communities such as the Salt River Pima Indian community and the Gila River Indian community, and they have fully supported this resolution. We've also discussed this resolution with the Phoenix Indian Center, Intertribal Council of Arizona, ASU's Department of American Indian Studies, and the Pueblo Grande Museum, and they have been fully supportive of this resolution. We asked the subcommittee today to move this forward to the full city council to get their input and the people's input, and to make Phoenix the largest city in the nation to recognize the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day. We thank the subcommittee for your time, and we're open to questions now.
Wonderful. Thank you for all your work on this and for meeting with key stakeholders. It's great to hear that many of them may be interested in doing events with us to commemorate this and recognize the important history here. Do my colleagues have any questions?
Not for them.
Wonderful. Or for staff?
Oh, for staff, okay. So, there's no more speakers.
We don't have any additional
Okay,
cards.
all right.
If anyone would like to speak on this item, please feel free to fill out a yellow card. But thank you to Jeff and Carlos for your work.
Thank you.
So for staff, we're not getting rid of, I guess, Columbus Day. We're not adding an extra paid city holiday.
Vice Mayor,
What are we really doing here? I mean,
Vice
anything
Mayor,
of substance?
Vice Mayor, Councilman Waring, you are correct. We are not getting rid of Columbus Day. This would be in addition to Columbus Day. They're both would take place the second Monday in October. It's not a city holiday, so there's no pay or anything for Columbus Day or for Indigenous Peoples Day. This is official recognition of that of this as a holiday. So it's a step above what the mayor can do with like a mayor's proclamation to recognize something. This is the full council recognizing this event.
But there's no activities associated with it, no time off for employees, no nothing.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, Councilman Waring, this has no impact to the city's budget in terms of those types of activities. The proponents of it have been discussions with some other Native American community folks about doing some types of events that would recognize those, but those would be ones that are not city-sponsored events that are taking city time, those things. There may be some participation in future about discussing some of those things, but that's not anything that's proposed as part of this application.
So there's nobody against it.
Correct.
Forgive me, it doesn't really do anything. Does it cost us any money to print up different letterhead or anything? There's no cost whatsoever.
No, there's no cost.
Okay.
Stubbs?
Councilman, if I may add, what we plan to do, should council approve this, is use our social media to inform the public of all the contributions of the indigenous people. So,
But that should cost, basically, I mean, if you're talking about tweeting and Facebooking, can't do it myself, but I'm told others can. Sorry, I'm old and curmudgeonly, but I mean, 10 seconds, right? send and that's it?
That
So it's
is
not
our
like
plan.
onerous staff time burden or anything?
No, certainly not.
Then there's no reason to belabor it.
And I would certainly love to see us do events with Pueblo Grande, which I think is one of our shining stars of the city's park system and one that we ought to celebrate more. And I could see this being a day when if we have milestones related to canal redevelopment, that we might recognize how we got our canal system and celebrate that history. Because there's certainly people who move to our community who do not know why Phoenix is here and what important role the Hohokam and others have played in our history. So I hope it'll be a good opportunity. I would love to see our media partners recognize the history on this day. And it's probably also a good day to say thank you to our neighbors, including the tribal communities who have been our great partners. I share a border with the Gila River Indian community in Phoenix City Council District 8, and we've partnered on a wide variety of things. Also, very appreciative of some of the grant funding that our tribal partners have given that help our first responders, our arts community, fighting homelessness. We certainly benefit a lot from our Native American communities, and we could probably do better to say thank you more often, so this will be a great opportunity. And it is exciting that we will be the largest city in the country to mark Indigenous Peoples Day. We'll be able to make some Phoenix history.
Can I ask another question?
Of
So
course.
do we do events to celebrate Columbus at all? There's no, not that I'm aware of. I
Vice
don't
Mayor,
remember getting
Councilman Waring,
invited to
I
any
don't-
like 9/11 or something like that. I don't.
Yeah, I
or
don't
any kind
believe
of
there are any city-sponsored events for Columbus Day.
So I wouldn't want us to spend, you didn't spend a lot of staff time doing this, right?
Correct, we did not.
Fantastic. You're not planning on doing lots of other, how are people even going to know it is this?
Well, Vice Mayor, Councilman Waring, it really depends a lot on, the Native American communities and what they would like to do, and the mayor and council, what they would like to do to
Well, other
recognize
groups
those
can
things.
say, or politicians can say, it is this day, but other than that, you're not sending notices out or, so people will be basically blissfully unaware unless somebody else goes and actively tells them.
Correct, Mayor, Councilman Waring, at this time, staff does not have a budget to do notification, outreach, anything related to
And you're not going to
that.
ask for one, right?
Correct, we do not intend to at this time.
If you'd like to hear from the community what they plan to do, they would probably be happy to tell you. Otherwise,
I mean, I assume they're going to say, we have this day now.
Right.
All right, so I can anticipate that. But I just didn't know if the city was planning on spending money, or it sounds like it's not, so. Great.
Vice Mayor, too, I want to commend all the work that Carlos and Jeff did on this. I can tell they're enthusiastic about it. I'm sure they'll help spread the word. I think we've got some strong advocates that'll be there for us. Thank you for your work.
definitely the community that has shown leadership here, and it is usually our residents that are leading the way. So thank you again in this case. I think we are ready for a motion.
Vice Mayor, so moved.
Second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 2-0 or 3-0?
3-0.
3-0. All right. Unanimous approval for Phoenix to become the Indigenous people's largest city celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. Thank you very much. Next, we move on to item number 5, Choice Neighborhoods Planning and Action Grant Award Update. Congratulations to Cindy Stotler and her team on City of Phoenix receiving the largest grant of this type in the country, which will help us update and improve our housing in the City of Phoenix and make sure the community is involved as we move forward. We do have a card on this item from Walt Gray, marked neutral. Mr. Gray, if you want to come up and provide testimony.
Can I wait until the presentation?
We do not have a PowerPoint scheduled for this particular item, but Will Emerson is here. Maybe, Will, if you wanted to give us a brief overview of the support from the Housing and Urban Development Department.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. I have with me today Yolanda Martinez, who is a housing manager, who is one of our project leaders on this program.
Thank you, William. Vice Mayor. Members of the committee, good morning. So as the City Council report indicated, we were recently awarded $1.5 million in Choice Neighborhood Initiative Planning Grant. $500,000 of that is for the transformation plan. $1 million is for an immediate implementation. We have visitors from HUD next week, Monday, and they will be out to visit with us to understand our approach and to meet some of our stakeholders and our residents. I'll take questions.
Wonderful. So this will allow us to have a robust community engagement process so that we make
Absolutely.
sure
This is the first kickoff.
as we invest in people's homes that they have a stake in the process and that the surrounding communities
It
and our
is too.
partners will be involved.
Thank you.
HUD has a great process where we'll have education, business community, and others involved, and so it's wonderful to have the support as we do this. So I guess if Mr. Gray, if you wanted to provide testimony on this award, we'd welcome you to the microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only concern is that, my only interest is that when we do housing projects, whether they're improvements or new housing or things of that nature, that we look at the entire city. That we not just put, this involves federal funds, subsidized housing, one form or another. And so therefore, we should not put all subsidized housing in the inner city. It's good for planning purposes, and I'm sure our planning director would tell you so, that it's good for planning purposes to have a diversity of housing throughout the city. That way you keep people close to their jobs. That reduces infrastructure costs, that leads to more community development, and leads to a more balanced city. So that's my only concern. And it's the same concern for number 8, I believe. Thank you.
I certainly agree we need affordable housing throughout the community and not just in Phoenix, throughout Maricopa County. And we'll have an agenda item next month on home funding, which I think might be good news to people who want to see affordable housing throughout our community. So with that, this was for information only. So congratulations to your team on successfully pursuing this award. It'll be wonderful to have the community engaged as we move forward on this. Thank you. The packet has information on the quarterly homeless update. There's been a lot happening in that area, so I would encourage people to review that update. And as part of that, we are really continuing our leadership in being a city that serves our veteran population. So we'll move to item number 7, which is Veteran Navigation Service. This was an item we heard about. Okay, I apologize. We will welcome Walt Gray up to speak about the homeless services update. I apologize.
Good morning, Vice Mayor Gallego and members
I
of the
apologize. I moved to 7 too quickly, and Walt Gray wanted to speak on 6.
That's quite all right. We appreciate the time.
I think it's appropriate that Mr. Gallego be the person presenting to you, because I've attended a meeting of the Continuum of Care Committee and the Continuum of Care Board. I'm concerned that they are more interested in academic kind of achievement than they are in solving homelessness. They seem to be all MSWs, Masters of Social Work, and wanting to fulfill whatever the master's degree program, the principles, the practices, the ethics, all those things, rather than removing people from the streets. There have been complaints. This is at the Continuum of Care Board meeting. There was a notice, there was a comment, and an official thing, I think, in the minutes that says that they've received complaints. And I think Mr. Gallego, in in my observation of him in both meetings, is also has shown some frustration with the process. Because they're just more concerned about academics than they are about the homeless. He has asked questions. He has been cordial, respectful, all that sort of stuff. But his questions show frustration. And I think you might question him about that. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Vice Mayor
We will
Gallego.
welcome.
Thank you, members of the subcommittee. My apologies. I got a little lost with all of the things that were going on. So thank you so much. We're here this morning to talk to you about really and to thank you for having the foresight and having these and giving the support to Human Services. This is in the budget. We have $100,000 of new funding for homelessness, specifically veterans. And what we want to talk to you about is requesting to release a request for proposal to put out this money. We also have had a lot of interest from our City of Mesa, who is very involved as well in all of the regional efforts across homelessness. And one of the things that we've found in the area of veteran homelessness is a need for a much better coordination of all of the services. That's really what navigation services does for the individual, but we as a system need to be better coordinated. So the City of Mesa has offered $25,000 to put together with our $100,000 to put out a joint RFP for navigation services and coordination services. We've been working with Natalie Lewis, the Deputy City Manager of Mesa, and a familiar face that's here with us today is Liz Morales, who was with our Housing Department and is now the Housing and Human Services Director with the City of Phoenix. So we're very glad to have her here. So we're going to do a brief background and then the request to release a proposal. I have with me Brian Balch. He is our Deputy Human Services Director over Victim and Homeless Services, which encompasses, of course, homeless services, domestic violence, and the human trafficking. And she'll walk you through the presentation.
Good morning, Vice Mayor, members of the committee. So as you know, in 2014, Phoenix was recognized as a leader in the nation in ending chronic veteran homelessness. And we did that through a project called H3 Vets. And I think you guys are pretty familiar with that. And the reason that project was so successful, was because it had really three key components. And that was a by name list, which meant we knew the name and status of every veteran. Assertive outreach and navigation services, which mean we had someone on the street to help every veteran through the process. And of course, a housing first approach, which means we moved people directly from the streets into housing. As a result of our success in that project, Phoenix was one of the first cities, along with our partners in the region, to be invited to be part of the new 25 Cities campaign. Thank you, at the national level. And that's a new effort to re-energize the campaign, but also to end all veteran homelessness, not just chronic, and to end all chronic homelessness, not just veterans. So it's a really expanded effort. And to show our support and show that we are very committed to this, our mayor, Greg Stanton, signed on to the mayor's challenge to end veteran homelessness, as did Mayor Giles of Mesa. So in order to get our arms around what this meant, ending all veteran homelessness and all chronic homelessness, we really had to wrap our arms around the numbers. So what you see before you is a look at our veterans in our region today. So you can see that we have about 70% of our veterans are in some kind of service, whether it's a transitional housing or emergency shelter, but about 30% of our veterans are still living homeless on the streets. In total, we have about 807 active homeless veterans throughout the region. Since November, when we started to really be able to report this data, we've housed, as you can see, over 900 veterans, which is amazing. We're housing about 100 veterans a month. But unfortunately, our our numbers continue to rise. And that's because between the numbers of veterans coming into our communities homeless or becoming homeless in our community each month and the numbers returning to our system, we may have seen them at some point in the past and then they're coming back to the community, that is higher than the number of people that we're housing a month. So it's higher than 100. So our number just continues to increase. So we know what works. The H3 model was very successful, and now we seek to expand it and scale up so that we can apply it to all populations. So as Mo mentioned, in the budget process, $100,000 was made available to us to progress with these efforts, and the City of Mesa has joined us by adding $25,000 to the pot. And what that allows us to do is we will be able to get navigation services, which we don't currently have, Mesa currently does have, and then their money will allow us to also put that coordination piece, which is the link between knowing who the veterans are and finding them and getting them to housing. Okay, so this is just a look at how we will evaluate the proposals. Not too exciting, but this is it. We will have a diverse evaluation committee, somebody from the city of Mesa, somebody here from the city of Phoenix, and also somebody from the Arizona Department of Veteran Services will participate in the evaluation. This is our procurement timeline. You can see that it's extremely aggressive. We're very serious about ending veteran homelessness. So if you guys approve this release today, we intend on releasing the RFP today and hope to have services on the street by December 1st. So, in summary, we're requesting your approval to release an RFP for navigation and coordination services to house homeless veterans in partnership with the City of Mesa.
Yeah. I just have a quick question. Can you just explain the difference between the cost budget, which is 200 points, in the fiscal ability? Just kind of clarify that for me.
Yes.
Thank you.
I can. So cost is about the appropriateness of the things that the vendor would be buying. Like, what are they paying their navigators? Is that a market rate for navigators and the level of experience they have? Whereas fiscal ability is about the agency's overall accounting practices and history and things like that. So we want to make sure both are reasonable.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Mesa program and who is currently providing navigation services in the city of Mesa?
I can attempt to, but if not, I will refer to
the
Liz.
experts.
I will refer to Liz. Mesa has already, I believe, funded by the United Way. They have 2 navigators, but what they've found in their system, which is that person that is really walking right by the veteran's side, taking them between application process to application process, helping them find housing, helping them move in, all of those things.
We have the experts.
Yes, I'll let the experts speak.
Vice Mayor and members of the subcommittee, thank you for allowing me to come and just share a little bit. City of Mesa, we have been funding a navigator for the City of Mesa, but we added one through our CDBG funds this past year to work specifically with veterans out of Pasta Cristo. They are identifying the most veterans that are coming through Mesa through their soup kitchen. And so with those 2 navigators, we just also lack that regional piece because of the distance. We were finding a lot of veterans falling through the cracks. So this is a great opportunity for us to come together and make sure regionally we can do this.
On behalf of the City of Phoenix, we are thrilled to work with you. It is a regional challenge, and the more we can collaborate, the more likely we are to be able to solve this. And then there's obviously resources at the state as well. I believe while Councilman Waring was at the state legislature, they created positions at the state to also help veterans navigate, although not particularly focused on the population on which we will focus. Can you talk a little bit about how we'll collaborate with other?
So the state is just about to, in fact, their first meeting will be this Thursday at the Arizona Coalition to End Homelessness Conference. They are having a new series of summits around sort of re-energizing their veterans plan to end homelessness. So they haven't decided the mechanism yet, but they're looking at how they can put some funds together for statewide coordination. So I'm not exactly sure what that looks like yet, but I think that planning process will begin this Thursday.
Wonderful. I think the more the state can step up as well.
Agreed.
The better.
And I believe, to your point, Vice Mayor, you've made the point so many times about the regional effort, and we all have to step up. And I think these conversations are really transcending the state, as we just mentioned, the cities and everything. So, and when the city of Phoenix or Mesa, as anyone steps up and does something like this, it creates a lot of conversation, a lot of collaboration. So as we can see, Mesa coming in, and then the conversations we've had with the Department of Veteran Services, also just, we can always do better, but it's certainly coming together better than ever before.
A point of pride of Phoenix that we've stepped up on this challenge, and this will help us continue that record of leadership. Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Do not have any cards on this item. Do we have any final council member questions? All right, ready for a motion.
So moved on the item to recommend releasing an RFP for bridge navigation and coordination services for homeless veterans.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Passes unanimously. Wonderful, thank you. Phoenix will continue to try to support those who have fought for us. So great news on that one. And we had almost a good segue talking about how Mesa is spending their community development block grants. This is the beginning of our process for looking at several streams of federal funding and what our priorities should be in the city of Phoenix. So we will welcome Chris Hallett, our Neighborhood Services Director, to talk to us about our planning process.
Yes, good morning, Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, welcome. I am here with Spencer Self. He's the Deputy Director over our grants administration and compliance, and so he will help me present today. We're actually combining two items, items 8 and 9, as they're very much interrelated, and we'll take separate action at the end. So the 2017-2018 Annual Action Plan is part of our 5-year consolidated plan, 2015 to 2020. So each year we go out, we seek policy direction from the policymakers here at the city, as well as community input, which we'll be having a hearing next month, in order to formulate this year's allocations for each of our 4 Department of Housing and Urban Development formula-based entitlement grants that the City of Phoenix receives annually. And those include the Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnerships, Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, and the Emergency Solutions Grants. So those 4 grants we receive annually and have to go through this process in accordance with the HUD guidelines. So it's about a year-long process, which is why we come early in the year to allow opportunities for some direction as this plan is to be submitted to HUD by May 15th in 2017. So also, as a subset of that, we are going to cover the Community Development Block Grant, Public Service, Public Facilities Request for Proposals. And what? No, I'm still just introducing you. I'm probably overdoing it, right? Yes. Just the 2 processes, and the Public Service, Public Facility is a smaller subset of the Community Development Block Grant, where we go out for policy guidance for public services, which does have restrictions. But with that, I will pass it over to Spencer. He's eager for his first subcommittee presentation. So,
thank you, Chris. Madam Chair. So not to reiterate
too much,
but
that strong introduction.
It's very strong.
You stepped all over your presentation. I mean, too polite to say it, Spencer. We appreciate that.
But we'll move quickly, though. So the annual action plan outlines the specific goals and activities for which each HUD federal formula grant will be used during the grant year. The process we are beginning today is for next year, 2017-18 funding. This annual plan builds on the consolidated plan, which establishes a 5-year strategic plan to address critical community development and housing needs. The 2017-18 fiscal year is the 3rd year of the current consolidated plan, representing the midway point. As Chris mentioned, there are 4 federal formula grants: the Community Development Block Grant, which is overseen by the Neighborhood Services Department and is used for housing rehabilitation, infrastructure, neighborhood revitalization, economic development, and limited public services. The Home Investment Partnership Grant is overseen by our Housing Department and is used for affordable and special needs housing. HOPWA, or Housing Opportunity for Persons with AIDS, is overseen by our Human Services Department, as well as the Emergency Solutions Grant, which is used for homeless services, outreach, rehousing, and emergency shelter housing. The dollar amounts you see on these slides represent our allocation for the current fiscal year. We do not yet know what next year's allocation will be, and so we'll be using these dollar amounts to do our preliminary planning. As you see here, the timeline for the annual action plan starts right now. So we are currently requesting that the subcommittee recommend approval of this process, and with approval, we will quickly reach out to the community to hold a public hearing in early October to gain initial input about community needs. We will then begin preparing a draft plan. In February, we find out how much entitlement dollars we will receive, so we'll be able to update that slide with what we will actually be given next year, and we will adjust the plan accordingly. And then in March, we will hold the 30-day public comment period after holding a public hearing to, again, receive public input. And then in May, we will come back to request approval of the full annual action plan. One thing to keep in mind, as Chris said, the AA plan is due to HUD May 15th, and so that sort of drives our whole timeline process. And so once we know the funding amount in February, it's kind of a quick process to get the plan finalized. With that, I'll move to our Public Services and Facilities RFP, which is item 9. Our CDBG program, Community Development Block Grants, which is just one of the 4 federal formula grants, allows for a maximum of 15% of the total allocation to be used for public services. A portion of these funds are competitively bid to nonprofits for key services which the city does not generally provide. We will cover the amounts and priority areas for that process on the next slide. In addition, we've identified $328,000 of our CDBG allocation for non-city public facility improvements, which are also competitively bid through the same general process. Public facility projects may include acquisition, construction, rehabilitation, and ADA modifications to senior and youth centers, domestic violence shelters, neighborhood facilities, and child care buildings. In order to be timely in awarding these competitive grants, we run the RFP process alongside the annual action plan. On this slide, we show our recommendations for the public service priorities. Based on discussions with our political leaders over the summer, we are recommending some changes to our public service categories, which we used for the current year. And so we've combined our 2 youth categories to eliminate redundancy. We eliminated the neighborhood revitalization section, which was small and had the lowest need of all the sections. And we carved out up to $150,000 for domestic violence and human trafficking prevention and or victim services to address specific recognized needs identified in our communities. As previously mentioned, the Public Services and Facilities RFP process run at the same time. And so we begin with the approval to begin the process, which is what we're doing right now. And then once the RFP is posted in late October, interested nonprofits will work diligently to provide their submittals by early December. In January through March, the mayor-appointed Community Development Review Committee meets regularly to evaluate the proposals, including hearing presentations from the most competitive submissions, before staff brings the results back in the spring for council approval. And with that, we request subcommittee recommend City Council approval of item 8, the process for the 2017-18 annual action plan, and item 9, the process for the community development block grant request for proposals process and proposed priorities for public service and public facilities.
Councilwoman Stark.
Thank you. On your process, you talk about a public hearing. Do you only have one, or do you try to spread out, have a couple to capture all the cities, since we're such a big city with a lot of square miles? Just curious.
Historically, Vice Mayor, Councilwoman Stark, historically we've had one at the beginning of the process to take input. So we put out, and generally speaking, priorities we've had previously adopted, again, under the 5-year consolidated plan, and then we take community input at the beginning of the process next month. Then we formulate the plan throughout the year and put it out for public comment in the spring and have another public hearing at the conclusion of this. So we try and do very good outreach in the beginning so we get lots. We tend to get a lot of public input on public service aspect, which is a 15% cap of our grant, of the community development block grant. But the public hearing up front, I believe, is for all 4 entitlement grants, as well as a public hearing at the end.
And just to add on to that, since the annual action plan is 1 year of the consolidated plan, there's also quite a bit of outreach that occurs through the consolidated plan process as well.
And when is this one hearing that's in October? And if people wanted to attend, how would they find out?
It is October 4th, and so we will be hosting that as well as reaching out to much of the community that attends those and nonprofits and let them know that we will be having that meeting.
And where is it on October 4th?
I believe that meeting is right here in the assembly rooms.
And then final question, what time is it on October 4th?
It's at 5:30.
5:30, wonderful. I just think we want to make, this is a good opportunity to invite people to join us.
Absolutely.
Particularly with the Community Development Block Grant funding, that is a pool of money that can do a lot of different things, and one which we often hear later in the year from groups that they wish they had been eligible for. And also for those of us who talk with other cities when they're doing new and innovative things, it is a pool of money which those cities often use to start new programs, and we saw a great example of that earlier today with Mesa doing the Navigator program with that pool of money. But I hear regularly from groups who say, we'd like to do more to fight food deserts. In other cities, they use community development block grants. Are we eligible to do so in Phoenix? Or it's a pool of money, I understand, that can be used for improving community safety on the infrastructure side. And that's not a priority we have yet set in Phoenix, but that's one, at least in my district, that I do hear. They wish that particularly nonprofits could go out and apply to do more safety focused. And so I think it's good that we advertise better to people who haven't always received this funding. We have great groups, many of whom have a long record of receiving this funding and who are pros at our process, but we want to make sure we are getting the highest and greatest need. And this is the time. I have personally learned that you can start too late to try to influence this process. And so now we are actually at the beginning for the year and can talk about what we really do want to see as our community priorities. All of the priorities we've identified are fabulous and very important, but we have a diverse city with a lot of needs, and so we have to be intentional about our priorities and how we divide up that funding. We do have a card from Walt Gray on this item, marked neutral. Oh, he did have to, okay.
But his neutrality will be entered into the record.
Yes, his neutrality will be entered in this record. And the staff did mention one item that would be new, which was human trafficking, and Councilman Waring is our leader on the council on that particular issue, so if that's something you wanted to mention.
You mentioned it, so I'm good. Thank you, I appreciate that. I talked too much about the first item, so I don't want to belabor it.
So if we did want to say that we wanted nutrition and food to be eligible for nonprofits to receive this funding, what would be the process for doing so? Addressing food deserts, for example.
Well, certainly we would, Vice Mayor, and want to include them in the upcoming community input session. We garner a lot of input from them as to what the needs are out there. Certainly everything we use for community development block grants in particular that I'll speak to is 70% of those funds have to go to serve the low to moderate income populations. So as we've discussed today, the public services, which has a 15% cap, if it's a service-oriented provision, and obviously it would probably go to serve the low to moderate income populations, they could be eligible to participate in our PS if we have a set aside. If it fits within, if they're targeting youth perhaps versus elderly or disabled, or the human trafficking domestic violent populations as it is right now. It really depends on if that's a set aside the council wishes to go, we would need to speak specifically for the RFP process. Otherwise, we'd have to look to see if there's other programs that are already provided within our action plan and allocation of programs. A lot of times what comes up is things that can be already covered in an existing program or service. So it begins with the public input, really determining exactly what's the need and the demand for that. So if it was going to be incorporated in a future request for proposals, we know what we'd be asking for.
We do hear from some groups that serve low to moderate income populations, but would love to serve the whole low to moderate income population and not just seniors and youth with programs in that particular issue. For example, with nutrition and food, some of the student programs have a lot more resources than people in other ages through the schools. And so how do we serve our entire population? And is the city council unnecessarily restricting who can be served? So today we would be issuing the RFP.
So today is approving the process to issue the RFP with these priorities, categories that we outlined in the presentation.
Wonderful. Well, when we get to the time for a motion, then I might be asking that we include either food and nutrition as an eligible for all low to moderate and not just, and anything else my colleagues would like to. Prioritize. Yeah. All right. I think we have no additional cards. Any additional council member questions?
Ready for a motion?
Ready for a motion.
Okay.
I was debating whether to make it myself, but if you'd be
well,
willing
then
to
I'll let you
make the motion, that would be phenomenal.
Okay.
You make every motion today. What would we do without our
New council.
MVP of the meeting?
Well, you know I care a lot about planning, development, and housing, so let's make two recommendations. So the first would be to recommend we move forward to City Council approval for the process for the 2017-2018 Annual Action Plan.
Second? Second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Oh, welcome. And the second motion, and this would be to recommend to City Council that we approve the CDBG RFP process and proposed priorities for public services and public facilities. And I believe, Vice Mayor, you want to emphasis on diet and nutrition.
Make an additional.
In addition, diet and nutrition.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. What a day for us.
Just because it's the first day, don't get used to it. I know a lot. So not today.
Excellent. Well, thank you. That was our final agenda item for the first meeting of the Sustainability, Housing Efficiency, and Neighborhood Subcommittee. We next move on to looking at what we have to look forward to. Do we have any council member requests for additional items for upcoming meetings? Among the items we expect to see is an update on workforce, on the home funds previously mentioned. I would love to see a few updates, an update on Advance Phoenix, which is our efficiency update. And I understand that is an issue that my two colleagues who are here today also have significant interest in. And then we received an inquiry from AARP about age-friendly communities, which I would also love to see on a future agenda item. Any additional future agenda items?
I concur with the AARP, though. Important.
Fabulous. Well, with that, we are adjourned.